West Virginia has a minimal tenant screening regulatory environment, one of the least regulated in the country. The state has not enacted significant restrictions on the screening process beyond what federal law requires, giving landlords broad discretion in how they evaluate applicants. If you're screening tenants in West Virginia, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is your primary compliance framework. West Virginia does not cap application fees. There is no state statute limiting what a landlord can charge for tenant screening. Landlords can set their own screening fees based on what they consider reasonable. While there's no legal cap, charging fees that are significantly higher than the actual cost of obtaining the screening report can invite complaints and damage your reputation. Best practice is to keep the fee in line with your actual screening costs and to disclose the fee to applicants before collecting it. West Virginia does not have a ban-the-box or fair chance housing law. There are no state-level restrictions on when or how landlords can inquire about an applicant's criminal history. Landlords can ask about criminal history on the initial application, can consider both arrests and convictions, and are not required to conduct an individualized assessment before making a decision based on criminal records. There are no state-mandated look-back period limits. No West Virginia municipality has enacted local criminal history screening restrictions for housing. The regulatory environment for criminal background checks and housing decisions is entirely governed by federal law, specifically the Fair Housing Act and HUD's 2016 guidance on criminal history and disparate impact. That HUD guidance applies nationwide, including in West Virginia, and warns that blanket criminal history rejection policies can violate the Fair Housing Act if they disproportionately affect protected classes and aren't justified by a legitimate business necessity. West Virginia does not have statewide source of income protections. Landlords are not prohibited from considering the source of an applicant's income when making screening decisions. Landlords can legally decline applicants who pay with housing choice vouchers, Social Security, disability payments, or other government assistance, as long as the decision isn't based on a characteristic protected under the Fair Housing Act. No West Virginia municipality has enacted a local source of income protection ordinance. For credit reports, West Virginia follows standard FCRA requirements. The landlord must have a permissible purpose. The applicant must provide written consent, and if the landlord denies the application based on information in the credit report, the landlord must provide the required adverse action notice. West Virginia has not enacted additional state-level requirements for credit report access, consent procedures, or adverse action beyond the federal baseline. West Virginia does not require landlords to provide applicants with a copy of the screening report beyond what FCRA mandates. There are no state-specific adverse action timelines or content requirements that supplement the federal rules. West Virginia's fair housing protections are found in the West Virginia Fair Housing Act, West Virginia Code, Chapter 5, Article 11A. The state prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, familial status, and ancestry. The inclusion of ancestry provides slightly broader coverage than the federal Fair Housing Act's categories, but otherwise tracks closely with the federal baseline. West Virginia has not added protections for sexual orientation, gender identity, age, or marital status at the state level. The West Virginia Human Rights Commission investigates fair housing complaints. One area where West Virginia's legal framework affects screening is the state's overall approach to landlord-tenant law. As we've discussed in our other West Virginia videos, the state does not have a comprehensive residential landlord-tenant act. The landlord-tenant relationship is governed by a combination of common law, limited statutory provisions, and the terms of the lease. This means that the lease agreement is the primary document defining the relationship, and landlords should include clear provisions about screening criteria, application procedures, and the standards they use to evaluate applicants. From a practical standpoint, West Virginia's rental market is one of the smallest and most affordable in the country. Charleston, the state capital and largest city, has a moderate rental market driven by state government, healthcare, including Charleston Area Medical Center and the West Virginia University Health System, and the chemical and energy industries. The Kanawha Valley market is the state's most active, but even Charleston's rents are well below the national average. Huntington, home to Marshall University, has a student-influenced market with moderate demand. Morgantown, home to West Virginia University, has the state's tightest rental market, driven by the university's enrollment and the healthcare economy anchored by WVU medicine. Morgantown rents are higher relative to the rest of the state, and competition for quality rentals near campus is strong. Landlords in Morgantown should screen thoroughly because the student market turns over frequently. Wheeling, Parkersburg, and Beckley have smaller, more affordable markets with limited demand. The southern coalfield communities, including Bluefield, Princeton, and Welch, have some of the softest rental markets in the country, with population decline and limited economic opportunity constraining demand. The Eastern Panhandle, including Martinsburg, Charlestown, and Shepherdstown, has seen growth driven by commuters working in the Washington, D.C. metro area. This market has stronger demand and higher rents than most of West Virginia, and the tenant demographics are different from the rest of the state. More professionals, more federal employees, and more families seeking affordable housing within commuting distance of D.C. West Virginia's energy economy, historically dominated by coal and increasingly influenced by natural gas, creates cyclical dynamics in certain communities. During strong energy cycles, communities near extraction activity see increased rental demand from workers. During weak cycles, demand drops. Landlords in energy-affected communities should screen for employment stability and financial capacity. One best practice for West Virginia landlords. Because the state provides minimal regulatory guidance on the screening process, establish your own written screening criteria and apply them consistently to every applicant. Document what factors you consider: income requirements, credit score thresholds, criminal history standards, rental history verification, and employment verification, and keep these standards in a written policy. Consistency is your best protection against any claim of discriminatory treatment. Another best practice: in university markets like Morgantown and Huntington, you'll frequently screen applicants who are students with limited income, limited credit history, and no prior rental history. Establish clear policies for how you handle co-signers and guarantors, how you verify student financial aid and parental support, and what alternative criteria you accept when an applicant doesn't have a traditional employment and credit profile. Having these policies in writing before you start receiving applications prevents inconsistent decision-making. West Virginia does not have a statutory cap on security deposits. The landlord and tenant can agree to any deposit amount specified in the lease. While this doesn't directly affect screening, the lack of a deposit cap gives landlords more financial protection, but thorough screening remains the better approach to risk management than relying on large deposits. For the complete guide to West Virginia tenant screening laws, visit tenantscreeningbackgroundcheck.com. Subscribe to our channel for every state in our tenant screening law series.